Hi, I'm Liz Granberg-Jerome from Gypsy Dreamer Quilts, and I'm here to talk about month 4 of the second Saturday Shop Sampler, This Way or That, for Quilters Paradise in Baldwin City, Kansas. And this month, we're making the eagle. And it's not a complicated block. In fact, it has everything you've already done: half square triangles, quarter square triangle, hourglass units, and the only thing we're adding is a single flying geese, which you'll have plenty of practice with later on, but for this month, just one little one. So let's get to the demo. As a quick reminder, for the half square triangles, you're pairing 2 fabrics, and when you sew them together on either side of a center line, a 1/4 inch on either side, cut them apart, open them up, you're pressing to the dark side, and then you're going to match opposite directions. You're going to make them opposing so that when you pull them back and look at the hourglass unit, which is what we'll be making here, these seams should meet in the middle. So they'll be marked again in the center and on either side of that line. Stitch just inside those lines, trim them, and you'll get an hourglass unit. This one here obviously is 2 blocks that were the same. These will be paired up, and it's in the instructions to where you have a light and a dark blue and a background in a dark blue and a medium blue and a dark blue, so that you get the 3-tone hourglass units that are across the bottom. And you'll only use 3, but the blocks that you make will actually make 4. So you'll have 1 left over for your scrap pile. So that's just a quick reminder. Now there's videos up on how to do those. So feel free to check into those on the website, on the Facebook page. So for flying geese, this one is a little one, but we're going to be doing a demo in a bigger one that you can actually see what's going on here. So this is a 6.5 by 3.5, the same size as the large ones that'll be in the quilt. And you're going to take a 6.5 by 3.5 inch rectangle, and you're going to take 2 3.5 by 3.5 inch squares. And yes, they overlap. We want them to. You're going to draw your line diagonally, and you're going to lay the first square on, and when I sew them, I start here on this edge and sew out to the corner. If I start here and try and sew in, that corner tries to get sucked down into my machine, and it can wreak havoc trying to get a nice even corner there. So if you start here in the middle of the long piece and sew out to the corner, it's much easier. When you're done, you're going to press this out. I make sure that it fills the entire corner before I trim it off. And then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch from the stitch line and cut those outside triangles off. And then you're going to press that out and have your first wing. Then you're going to take your second wing and lay it on. And again, I sew from this edge on that line out to the corner. And you'll do the same thing. When it's made, you're going to press it back, make sure it fills the corner. I check it then briefly to make sure it's still 3.5 by 6.5, and it is. So now I can trim this corner off. And now I have a complete flying geese. And this one here has been pressed. And so that's just kind of a quick rundown of how I make the flying geese. Again, I try and start here and go out rather than trying to start to stitch where there's a point. That makes it much more difficult to get a nice clean corner. Now when I make flying geese, and when we get further into the pattern, I use a ruler called the wing clipper. And this is a Deb Tucker Studio 180 ruler. And this particular one is made specifically to trim flying geese. And if you look, there's a little X up here, and I'm following the 6.5 by 3.5, and I can see that my block fits just about perfectly in there. So I'm not actually going to have to trim this, but having this little guide makes sure that you keep a 1/4 inch from where the point is to the edge of your fabric, so that when you do your seam line right along here, your seam is going to cross where that point is at a 1/4 inch, so that your point will come right into the seam when you've got it made. So it's just another tool. It goes from 1 by 1.5 inch flying geese all the way up to 10.5 by 5.5. So it's a multi-size tool. We'll be using this with flying geese in several sizes in the rest of the quilt. So it's something to think about if you want to pick one of these up or have Sharon send one to you. She's got them in the shop and has them available. And it's the wing clipper from Deb Tucker. All right. The other tool that I've been using that I wanted to share with you is a fussy cut ruler. And this is from a different company. This is from Marty Michelle. And it's a ruler that has multiple different size squares. 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and the whole thing is 6 inch. And they include the 1/4 inch seams, so it's actually a 4.5, 3.5, 2.5, 1.5. And what this does for me is on our hourglass units, I want to trim this block in such a way that my center stays in the center. So if I know I'm going to be making a quilt that has a lot of these units in it, this is a very handy tool. And it comes, like I say, it has different sizes, so it's all different sizes in one ruler. And you would be able, we know this is going to be a 3.5 inch block. So I can trim here and trim here. The angle's a little bit funny, but I think I can get it. Turn it around and then line the edges that you've already trimmed up with the inner edges of the 3.5 inch square, and then trim again. And I'm going to turn it a little bit so I can reach that last corner. And when I'm doing this, the seam lines are staying on the cross in that square, and the center is in the center of my hourglass unit. So I know it's centered, and all of my seams come to a point where they belong, and it's ready to go into the quilt. So again, if it's a quilt that you're going to be making a lot of these units, this is a very handy tool. It's the multi-size fussy cut for squares from Marty Michelle. Now when you get a ruler like this, or the wing clipper, they don't have anything on the back to make them grip. So I use Invisigrip, which is another product that Sharon has at the shop, which is a plastic that you can cut to fit your ruler, and it clings to it and it helps it not slide. And so rather than having a ruler that slides easily, this makes it less slippery so that you're less likely to slip when you're trimming. You can also use strips of shelf liner, the rubber shelf liner that we get to use in our drawers or on the cupboard shelves. That works wonderful also. All right, and now on to the actual block. I'm going to show you the block from the wrong side first, because I have pressed all of these seams, and if you notice, each row is going in the opposite direction from the center out. So the top row with the beak is being pressed away, the next row comes in, the third row goes out, the fourth row comes in, and the last row goes out. That will make it much easier when you sew your rows together, so that all of your seams will nest together when you're ready to sew your rows together. All right, so let's turn them over. Oops. There we go. And there, and there, and there. Now, some of you may notice, if you looked at the original block picture, that our little eagle had interesting wings. Your designer didn't read the pattern very well the first time, and when I went back to write the instructions and remake it, I realized, oh, those were supposed to be dark triangles angled out to make the wings this way. So I'm actually going to be taking this one apart and dropping those little half square triangles in to make him proper. And so the one that I've made as the sample has the correct layout for our eagle block. Don't forget, you can find the videos for each month on the Quilters Paradise Facebook page, and I'm also posting them and have them on the Gypsy Dreamer Quilts YouTube channel. There's a whole playlist of blocks or of videos that go with this quilt, as well as some extra videos on basic sewing instruction that you might find useful. And I look forward to seeing you all again next month. Thanks so much.